Hi, I'm Stephen Dufchik, your host for Election Central, Brantford. And we're here with Marc Laferriere, or Marc Laferriere, any which way you want to see it.
I prefer Laferriere.
Marc Laferriere.
Just Marc.
Just Marc?
Yeah.
Just Marc, just like Bob.
Yeah,
just Bob.
Mark your vote, right?
Just Bob.
Bob,
yeah.
Marc, whoever. Just a
I
regular
still
guy.
love that when he went in there and he just said, yeah, I'm going as Bob. That was brilliant. And all those who know who I'm talking about,
Yep.
Absolutely, and I love that about you guys. So, welcome. Welcome to Polish Hall. You're not a stranger by any means.
No.
At all. If anything, I feel like you're one of us, just always showing up.
I have a lot of my birthday parties here.
Yes.
A lot of fundraisers, a lot of just community events, and I know a lot of folks in this community.
Oh God, yeah. Do you ever? All those, everybody.
Well, and as the video technician is eating food here, it's making me crave the wonderful food that I sometimes take my mother here at the noon hour to come and have. So.
That's right, pierogies, cabbage rolls, and coffee.
Nothing wrong with that.
That's right. You gotta love it. Cabbage rolls and coffee.
Well, I've been doing so much walking. I've lost 30 pounds this election.
Congratulations.
Well, thank you. And that's the only thing I'm going to lose, because we're going to win this election, but we're going to lose some weight on the way. But I can afford to actually eat some pierogies now calorically, so it's okay.
Gotta keep those carbs going, man.
There we go. With all the walking, yeah.
It's getting cooler. You gotta, you're like a hockey player now.
Yep.
Gotta carb up, so you're out there, you're burning it.
I remember in the last election, there were certain days, because that was May 2011, April and May. There were certain days where in the morning you were wearing winter clothes, and then you were wearing shorts and a short sleeve shirt, and then you were wearing a jacket, then you were back to winter clothes in the same day, in the same 18-hour door knocking period. It was crazy. This is a lot better.
Yeah. So, and how's your wife doing?
She's doing great. Yeah, we're expecting our first child, so that's really exciting. And
is that a scoop?
No. I mentioned this at the debate. I mentioned this at the Rogers debate.
Oh, but it's a scoop because this is going online.
Okay,
this
should be a scoop then, I guess.
Congratulations,
No, we're expecting, and it's made this election even more important to me in that the motivation to make sure that, Ed Broadbent told me once, we need politicians that look at the next 40 years, not the next 4, and with a baby on the way, you can't help but look at the next 40 years. And things like our lakes and rivers and our job situation and just programs being there for people. It becomes very, very important. And so this has been an exciting election, because of how close it is. And locally how close it is with the Conservatives. But it's been exciting because, your name's on the ballot, you have this great team, but then this occurs as well. And we're expecting in March, and it makes your focus so strong. It's just been an incredible ride.
I'm just so happy for you guys.
Yeah, thank you.
I know that I've known you guys as a couple forever.
Yeah.
That's how I was introduced to you guys as the couple, and it was like, wow, it's just been great. So congratulations, man. I'm really happy for you.
We appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, awesome. Al, how are you doing at work? How's work going?
I love the work that I'm doing in the community. People, if you don't know, I teach at Mohawk College. I'm a professor there. I teach Justice Studies, Police Foundations, and I've been lucky enough to work in this community for a long time. Great organizations. I've worked for Laurier Brantford. I was the first staff member that they hired for the social work program full time to help with their placement programs. I worked at the Grand River Community Health Center doing mental health work, clinical social work.
As we know, because you guys were still doing the Mental Health Week launch here at the hall,
which I normally MC, and I love that week, and the Addictions Awareness Week, and a lot of important community gathering about important issues. And before that, I worked at Woodview, which is where I think we met when I was working at Woodview.
Through my cousin Diane.
Yeah, well, wonderful. One of the best bosses I ever had. They're all the best. If you live in Brantford, you were my best boss ever. whoever has been my boss who lives here. But no, she was incredible, and she's she taught me a lot.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, so beyond that, so we got that. So what groups are you with now? Like what's community groups? Because not only is Marc now a teacher or a professor, you've started so many organizations that I became part of.
Yeah.
Like Peace Fest.
Yeah, the local Global Peace Festival was a great one. The Open Forums Brantford Brant.
Yes.
The Brantford Brant Community Garden Project, the Brantford Brant Roundtable on Poverty, the Brantford Youth Leadership Conference, which is a free youth leadership conference we do every year, a nonpartisan. A lot of the folks who I'm running against have been a part of that because that's how I think we should do
How's
things.
that growing?
It's great, actually. I think by this year we'll have had over 500 students
That's great.
So we've had over 100 students the last couple. So actually, I think we'll be at the 650 range when we do it. Normally, we would do it in October, but with the election on, there's no way to make it nonpartisan the way I need it to be, the way I want it to be, the way I think it's best for those kids. I think no matter what, with an election on, it's smart to pause it and do it a little later in the year than we normally do, just because with the election on, it's everything can be read into. I helped start the Brand Advocate with my friend Lucas Duguid and my friend Andrew Macklin, and my goodness, that project's one of my favorite community projects of all time. I mean, it's. I think sometimes in this community we've suffered from an unfair self-esteem problem, where people say there's nothing to do here, or we aren't what we used to be. No, but you know what? We have a lot going for us. We have an incredible history. We have an incredible present, and I think we have an incredible future. And the Brand Advocate was this project, this newsprint publication where we crowdsourced and we got folks to write articles, send in their photos, their opinions, and the only real rule was, don't hurt anyone. Have an opinion. You can even be critical as long as you offer a solution. And we had voices from across party lines and from across our First Nations communities, our multicultural communities, our urban and our rural communities, all writing at that project.
I love that project.
Hundreds of pieces of local content,
and
mostly
now
positive.
You're not in print, but now you're in Rogers.
Yeah, so we have the TV show, which is on pause because of the election as well, and that's an amazing ability to spread the word, because that TV show is in, I think, something like 8 markets. So I'll have friends in Kitchener and Cambridge and other places saying, hey, I didn't know this about Brantford, or I didn't know this about Brant, I didn't know this about
And that's not easy to do with a local cable cast to be getting broadcasted in more regions.
Yeah. I think it's something like 250,000 homes.
Wow! Congratulations! Good for you for spreading some great messaging.
Well, no, it's
important. I was on your show, and it was great.
You rocked it. You rocked it.
We had a lot of fun.
Yeah, well, we always do. So no, that's been, these things have been excellent. But with the campaign coming, one of the things I'm really cognizant of is to make sure that organizations that I work with don't get any blowback, because campaigns can be partisan, campaigns can have issues, campaigns can be political, and so I left the Brant United Way Gen Next Committee, which I helped found and was the vice chair of. Love that group, but. Until after the election, I think it's really important, and in any capacity I can help out, especially as your MP, those projects, I think it's important. So what I've been doing are things that are definitely non-political or very, very non-partisan. So I'm a member of the Brantford Brant Sunrise Rotary, and I think that's been incredible. And a Chamber of Commerce. Nobody's going to say that those are partisan groups by any means. So.
Absolutely.
So I've been lucky enough to be on over a dozen local committees, or not-for-profits.
Yeah, and you help create them, create the messaging, create.
Create them, get people around the table and say, okay, the point you want to get to, and this happened with the Community Garden Project, is eventually you're the person just turning on the coffee. Not because of not wanting to do the work, but because you want the community to come together, take it over, and eventually in a community development capacity, you want to be almost in the way. When the community gardens, I'm not a gardener. I have a brown thumb, but I've helped create community gardens, and eventually we got so many people who knew about gardening involved. I knew about community development, but knew about gardening, where I'm going, wow, I'm actually in the way, because they're having to train me up on how to do some of these things. So it's now at, I think, 40 gardens in this community.
I know, isn't it fantastic?
We had 0.
I know.
And I remember going to City Hall.
I really love it.
Going to City Hall and saying to City Hall, listen, Hamilton has 50, Kitchener-Waterloo has 80, we have none. And now we have 40 in our community. Right?
Yeah, and there's one in front of the police station. Just off of Wayne Gretzky Parkway. So if you drive there, you'll see that too. Yeah,
Councillor Antosky has been a huge proponent of community gardens, and she's really taken it to a whole other level with city buy-in.
Nice.
I think so. Yeah.
Good job. Is there anything else you got cooking in the back burner that maybe you want to give it? We could be a scoop.
Well,
besides making babies.
Besides making babies, no. I think that this campaign, I made a commitment to this campaign especially after the last campaign. We did so much well. We grew so much. We got more votes than the Liberals and the Greens combined, and it was so important to make sure that we focus in this election. So I've made sure to fill out the contracts, or I shouldn't say contracts, I guess the commitments. To the boards and community events I do, and I've let people know with fair warning when the election sort of comes. I need to be focused on that, especially because with my work life and my personal life, I like my family life. I should say. I think it's so important to focus. So. This election, it's the longest in Canadian history. We're in the last 100-something years. Last time we had an election this long, it's because we had horses and buggies, and that's why it needed to be so long. So I think that's an interesting thing, and it's good that I did scale back on some of those things while I knew the politics piece was ramping up. But with politics, if you do it as community development, and that's my style, I'm not big into flashy ads, I'm not big into spending, hundreds of thousands of dollars or more. I'm into what can you do in the community, right? Can you go door knocking and pick up some garbage when you do it? Can you go door knocking and shovel some driveways while you do it? Can you have forums and town halls where there's actually something created. Even this youth leadership conference. I mean, the idea is that now it's a competition. There's a competition element where a winning team of young people win access to some money, some capital, so they can actually put their ideas into play while having these adults around the table who've done some of these things say, okay, well, here's some help we can offer. And I think it's so important to not just treat politics like it's just about a vote. It has to be about changing things in the community, and it has to be about being reflective of our community. Our community doesn't, in my estimation, our community isn't about expensive fundraisers. No. I'll do fundraisers here, $5 or $15 or 90-cent dinners or whatever it is instead of the $90 ones. To me, it's a very different way of doing it, and it's actually had a lot of success here. And I know internationally we've been recognized. Marshall Gans, who's a Harvard professor who worked with Martin Luther King and Bobby Kennedy and Chavez, Cesar Chavez with the grape strikes. He's endorsed my campaign as one that he was Barack Obama's chief strategist in his first campaign, and he said this is the future of politics. What we're doing here in Brantford with the NDP.
That's really cool.
Yeah,
that's something we did not know. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
So that's been excellent, and like I said, Ed Broadbent as well, saying this is how it should be done. Right.
Good job.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. That's sort of what I hope is sort of a legacy, accessibility. Right, making sure that we run accessible campaigns, and as your MP, that I'm somebody who will be accessible, that I'll be the best constituency MP this riding's ever seen. I think it's important. I think Derek Blackburn was the best constituency MP we ever saw, and I know this because I still knock on doors today, where I'll knock on a door and somebody will come out and they'll say, "Oh, I love Derek," and they never ever mention his white paper on defense or any of the international work he did. They always say he helped my mom, he helped my dad, or he helped me. That he called in from Ottawa, that he made sure to be there. He showed up, right? And he showed up when people had personal issues even. I mean, people would tell me that he would personally drive folks to women's shelters back when that wasn't really a thing, and they were in Hamilton, not here. That he started the food bank out of his constituency office because we didn't have one. That's what I think we need to do. I want to practice social work as a constituency MP.
Oh,
if you know what I mean.
I totally, I get it.
Yeah, and for those of you watching at home, I mean, the idea being that, okay, what's the role of a social worker? People come into your office and they say, I need help, and you try to help them. What should be the role of your MP? The same thing. Just with the other part with the policy, that you can actually help create policy that'll help with that as well. Yeah. But on the local level, people come into your office and you need to help them. And I've been doing that in this community for years and years and years.
As long as I've known you.
Well, and before that. So I think,
exactly,
imagine what could be done as an MP with some staff focused on helping people locally. Not on message control, not on what the guys in Ottawa are saying this week or that week, but on people coming to the office and much like Derek Blackburn, helping them with their issues in their moment, and trying to find the creative solutions we need, and then being able to reflect that back in Ottawa. Because I don't want to be one of those MPs, and I think there are a lot of them, and I think they happen in every party, where they say one thing in their riding and they say another thing in the House of Commons. I think that's what makes people cynical. That's what gets people unengaged. I think we need to grow beyond that and be the same person who's at the Polish Hall having a pierogi is the same guy who's going to be in Parliament Hill advocating for you.
Well, that's great, and I totally agree. Come on down to the Polish Hall and have some pierogies.
And then go advocate for your community.
And then go advocate, yes. Well, on that note, do you want to start with the questions?
Sure.
You're good. Is there anything else you want to say to the audience that maybe they might not know Marc as, or that you want them to know Marc, the soon-to-be Papa, Like, that's crazy. Wow, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Like, I'm still floored about that.
Oh,
Congratulations.
sorry. Yeah, well,
You know,
good,
and
good.
you work in the community, you know, social working and so on, and working with
Social work, small business, education. I've had my hand and foot in all those things. My grandfather owned all the hotels on Colburn Street at one point or another back in the day, so that's
did
where I
not
got.
know that.
Yeah, my no-no, Arcangelo Carosi. He was at one point or another owned pretty much all of them. It's fun when I go to the Rossini Hall because people remember him. His first hotel was the 4-star, which isn't that far away. And you have people say, I had my honeymoon at the 4-star. And you know, this was a town
That's great.
Oh yeah, this was a town where that group, the Italians here back, well actually the Italians and the Polish have a very similar history in Brantford. They came in around the same time, worked shoulder to shoulder in a lot of the same manufacturing bases.
Absolutely, yeah.
And also dealt with some of the same stigma.
Yeah.
At that time, right? So there's always been this kinship in this community between Polish and Italian groups, I found.
Yeah, and then that goes to the villages,
Yes.
which we created the villages, and you support the villages a
huge,
lot. I'll see
huge.
you all the time, which is great. So, okay, well, we're going to launch into our questions. So, once again, the questions are the same that we had before, and we're going to just give them now. So, what inspired you to run?
When I was 14 or so, I went to Assumption College, the high school on Schillard's Lane, and this was back when there was only 7 or 8 houses around that school, and we didn't have a bus. And I remember continually wanting to do things at my school. I wanted to be on the student council. I wanted to be in the plays. I wanted to be on the rugby team. And I remember having to tell folks, so teachers, having to say to them at any given moment, hey, if you put me in the play or if I get on the team, you'll have to drive me, because my mom didn't have a car and we didn't have a car in our family, and there was no bus route. And a lot of them did. Susan Dignan, I remember she said, I'll drive you every single day or I'll find somebody who will. And that was really, really incredible and helpful.
Dignan,
Mrs. Dignan,
I
right?
remember her, yeah.
Yeah, she's incredible. And it was one of those things where that's great, but you also feel, and not because of anybody's reaction, but you also feel a bit of shame when you're just trying to do well. Hey, I want to help, but here's a part of me that feels like a burden, and I'm just a kid. So we started trying to work around it. I got on student council, and we started doing movie nights before dances, because there were kids who were saying, well, I want to come to the dance, but there's 4 hours in between, and if I go home, I won't be able to get back, but if I stay here for 4 hours doing nothing, that's not really a great use of my time either. So we started doing pizza nights and movies and things like that. But I started realizing at that young age, that's just a Band-Aid though. Like, we're not actually dealing with the core issue, which is accessibility. And I was realizing too that folks who didn't have, kids who didn't have their own cars weren't able to get good co-ops. And co-op placements were so important because there was no bus. So we were just sitting there thinking, what can we do? What can we do? So I created a petition. I was about 15 when that part happened, I believe. I created a petition, got 1,000 signatures, went to City Hall, and filled it with about 200 students. And there was a city councilor who's a friend of mine now named Wally Lucente. And I remember he got up and he asked me all these questions. And I remember saying, well, as a 15-year-old, let me try to answer those. And I did. By the next year, Richard Carpenter had the same laugh you just had there when this 15-year-old, and Wally's a good friend now. He's a great guy. I see him all the time. But it was really interesting because the next year, within that period of time, every single recommendation we had got accepted. There's a bus at Assumption. When I see kids from Assumption now, I say, hey, you ever ride that bus? You're welcome. And it was great because we could get to co-ops. We could go to school dances. We could. At first, it was just a couple times a day, and now it's a regular bus. It's one of the most used buses in the whole community. And I thought, as a kid, if a group of 14 and 15 and 16-year-olds could make that kind of change, then anybody can, right? So that's where I got the bug.
Yeah.
I got the bug, and that's how I got involved generally. I remember Councillor Brian Van Tilburg, before he was a councillor, him and I were on the round table on poverty, and he would talk to me afterwards, and he would say, you should consider coming by the NDP office, and maybe you should consider helping out, and I started doing that, and almost immediately him and a few other local folks kept saying, you got to run, you got to run, you got to run. And I thought, I was 26 when they first started asking me to run, or 26, 27. And I thought, no, you know what, I'm too young. And then I started realizing, wait, all these adults who've been there before are saying I'm not too young. And I wish I had listened earlier, because if I spent a year saying I was too young, and if I had said before saying I was too young for a year, we would have done even better, right? But when I was 28, I threw my hat into the ring, and we all thought it was minority government and the election was going to come any second, and it turned out to be a 2-year 2 years before the election happened.
Yeah.
I remember Justin Trudeau came to town and on my nomination day, and he had a $90 a plate dinner to talk about youth issues.
Right.
And I thought, that's not really my style, that's not really for me. And it was on the day of my nomination meeting, same date, same time. And it was one of those things to try and get the new guy off of the front page of the paper. And I was 28, so really I was going to talk about youth and politics, and here's somebody else doing it. We had the same number of people at my nomination meeting that they had at their dinner.
Fantastic.
And the young people who were there started writing letters to the editor saying, well, there's one party talking about youth, but there's one that actually had youth doing all the pieces here. The young guy running with young people supporting him, and I saw Jack Layton about a month later. We were getting our photos taken in Toronto for literature and all that, and he said, I heard you got the same amount of people as Justin Trudeau at your nomination meeting that he had at this big fancy dinner. And I said, yeah. And he says, well, when can I come to town?
Wow.
I said, how about December? I was talking to a friend of mine, Lisa Rose, who wanted to do something, affordable dinner for Christmas.
Right.
And I said, how about December? And he came December 23rd, and we did a 90-cent dinner. So they were doing $90 dinners.
Yes.
We did a 90-cent dinner
I
with Jack
remember
Layton.
that. I remember that.
And,
Yes.
and triple the people showed up. We had 300 plus people. We had to do 2 shifts because it filled up so quickly.
Good job.
I later found out this was shortly after his diagnosis, and he still came. And I was just really inspired. I remember somebody said to me, Jack's outside, go get him and bring him in. So I go outside, and Jack's in lineup with everybody else to get in. I said, oh, Jack, why don't I grab you and we'll go? And he grabbed me by the shirt sleeve and said, stay here, stay in line.
Nice.
And it was such a simple lesson. Yeah, stay in line with everybody else, because that's what we are.
Yeah.
We're the folks that stay in line. We're the folks that are just like you, and we're not above, we're not below, we're just everyday folks. And I always remember that. And so, we had that wonderful run, and we did so well, and all this momentum locally, and it's so hard to go from third to first. It's almost impossible. And so going from third to second, 16,000 votes. I had the same amount of votes that year that Dave Levac got, right? Which is pretty amazing. And 30%, and just push. And I took about 3 days off after that election. I took 2 weeks off for my honeymoon as well. But other than that, I've been outdoors every month, and often every day, like right now, and been in the community. I've held the town halls. I've heard the need of people, and we have everything to win in this community. We have everything to win in this community, and we're doing everything to win in this community. The door knocking, the town halls, the accessibility, the social media, the accessibility is so important, and being able to run the way I wanted to run, not a traditional campaign. Yeah. That has been so inspiring. And then, this election with that boost of, by the way, you have a kid on the way. And we need to see changes. We need to see things differently. Give you an example, the Grand River, right? I got engaged on the Grand River. Took my wife to a dock on the Grand River in Paris and surprised her, and we got engaged. We got married at Stillwaters on the Grand River. And I want my kids to be able to enjoy the Grand River. And the federal protections are stripped from millions of lakes and rivers. Things like that. We need to make those changes. I see people who, 55-year-olds who've been laid off from factories when they've closed or moved, fighting with their 25-year-old kids for the same temp job in our community. That needs to change. And we see issues around like food security and everything else. There are so many issues, and we need long-term. We need short-term, but we need long-term planning as well, so that all levels of government can work together, so that people are more involved and engaged, and this community just keeps inspiring me to run. It's been so good to me. I grew up in public housing, and I was born here. I lived outside of here for a bit in public housing, came back here when there was an opportunity to live in a house in an Eagle Place, a safer neighborhood than I came from out of town. And my goodness, this community's been so good to me, and how do you not be inspired by that?
Totally gotcha. So thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so what do you want your legacy to be if elected?
For me, again, it's accessibility.
Yep.
It's not having these expensive fundraisers. It's having a nonpartisan office space. I don't want to have orange on my signage. I don't want to have the NDP logo in my office. Those constituency offices need to remain impartial. I don't want to do the thing you see where you spend a bunch of taxpayer money on these flyers. I think we've seen too much of that, and across all parties, but locally we've seen a ton of that. Where you're talking about tens of thousands of dollars is. And I've worked in organizations where tens of thousands of dollars could help people in legitimate ways.
Yeah.
I think it's fine to do, like Dave, I think Dave Levac does it well, where it's, here's 3 or 4 flyers a year and a Christmas card, but I mean, there's some times where we've received 16, 20 in a year.
Yeah.
Sometimes we get 4 or 5 in the mailbox at the same time in the same week. I think that is a really bad misuse of taxpayer dollars, and it keeps you inaccessible when you keep pushing that partisan message out constantly. So for me, it's being the least partisan, or maybe the best partisan. It's being accessible, and it's being the best constituency rep ever in this riding.
So what does accessibility look like?
To me, it looks like not having expensive events.
Gotcha.
It looks like being someone who can walk around the community and meet you at the coffee shop, not just his office. It's actually answering your own social media. I hear from so many people who they say, I'll get my social media guy on that. I'm my social media guy. If you go to facebook.com/BrantMarc, and it's Marc with a C, you'll see it's me. I'm the one responding to you. You won't always get it right away, but you often will, actually, because I think it's an important way to engage.
Absolutely.
I'm not a huge fan of Rob Ford and his policies, but I do like that, and I've heard this from people who live in Toronto who say, yeah, but if you called the guy, he answered his phone, right? And I think that's really important, to be somebody who answers their phone, who returns emails, who gets back to you, who you can stop on the street and say, hey, I just need to talk to you for a minute, or when can we schedule something, and not get sort of blown off, or have it be that you go into a constituency office and if it's something you ideologically don't agree with, you won't work on. I tell people this all the time. A lot of folks are voting for me from a lot of different parties. They traditionally support progressive conservatives or liberals or Greens, and they're saying, yeah, this time, and we like you and we like your message and we're voting NDP. Great. But I'm not just serving folks who vote for me, right? It's not just about a team. It's about a bigger team of Brantford Brant, and needing to make sure that we do right by everyone we can. Gotcha. And to me, that's what accessibility really is. It's an attitude, and it's about leaving the partisanship outside of the constituency.
Awesome. Well said. All right, and the last one. What can you say to people to encourage them to get out and vote? Change doesn't happen by sitting on your couch, right? We have to make sure that people of all ages and all backgrounds get back out there and vote. We're in this amazing room where literally it's a tribute to folks who fought and sometimes died for this right. And I can't believe how joyous some folks are to vote, and how unfortunately apathetic other folks are. Yeah. But this election, I'm getting a lot fewer of the non-voters. I think actually in Brantford Brant, we're going to be in for a surprise when it comes to voter turnout. That would be nice.
It would be amazing. And I'm not hearing the same amount of non-voters. Last time people were almost proudly non-voting, and now they're thinking, and the wheels are turning, and we need to get back into that place of 70-80% voter turnout, instead of the 50s or 60s. I think that folks need to understand that there are changes that are possible, that in this election there are things that are really on the table, right? When we talk about things like home care, dementia strategy, strategies around the auto sector and tourism industry that'll help here a lot, and also the small business strategies and pharmacare, being able to make sure people actually have access to medicine that'll save us billions of dollars, and it's more ethical, it helps people. There's a lot at stake in this election, and we're in it to win it. Locally, my goodness, we've never been this close. We have never been this close nationally, but we haven't been this close since the Blackburn days. The Conservatives are down quite a bit in this community, and the NDP, myself, we are the best option to make sure that things happen. That we have so much to win, we have so much to gain, and we're doing everything we can in this community to win, and have been for years. Like I said, I haven't really taken days off. In this community, I don't care if you voted Progressive Conservative, I don't care if you voted Liberal in the past or Green in the past, or you've never voted. You need to vote, and you need to vote for me. What we can do in this community would be incredible locally, but also what we can do nationally to actually help people, to help the small business owner, the grandparents, the parents who are struggling, and the young people. This is an opportunity we can't let slip through our fingers. We're funny about the NDP in Canada sometimes. I think, we recognize Tommy Douglas as the greatest Canadian, but we could have actually had him be our prime minister, and we let that slip through our fingers. Then Ed Broadbent, who I've worked with, and I love that guy. I love that guy so much. He's the best prime minister we never had. And people say that all the time. My goodness, what could we have done if we had made him our prime minister? And then Jack Layton was the best prime minister we almost had. Right? We were so close. And now we have that opportunity. And Tom Mulcair, no leader's been here more. He'll be here. He's been here 6 times. We've had a dozen events, and we have more on the way. And Tom gets this community. He gets a sense of it. He was talking in Maclean's magazine about Brantford. I mean, that's incredible.
That's right on.
Right?
That's great.
It's great to see those sort of things. So I just think that anybody of any stripe, if you want to see some wins for Brantford, trust me with your vote. You know that I'm here. You know that I show up. You know that I'm accessible. And you know how hard I'll work. I have all the motivation in the world, especially now, to make sure that we see really good things in our community and work together to do it. So that's what I would say to folks, to encourage them to vote, because it's a positive thing. And one other thing, parents, bring your kids. If you have little kids, bring them to vote. The studies show that it helps them know how to vote. It makes it less scary. It's not this thing that happens in a building far away. But also for those other adults who are there waiting in line, and in some of the areas it's bad lighting. It's not it's sort of waiting in line. Waiting in line is waiting in line. But when they see little kids there, it does an amazing thing to them. So folks, bring your kids, because it inspires the people who showed up, and it makes them feel like role models for the next generation. It makes them feel connected. So bring your kids to vote.
And it also goes back to your conversation of, they're our future.
Yes, they are. Well, they are, and they're actually the present as well. We have, again, so much to win in this community, and we have all the reasons in the world to create some wins. Right?
Awesome. Well, thank you, sir. Is there anything else you wanted to say?
I just wanted to thank you guys for doing this. I saw these in the provincial, and I thought this was incredible. I saw every party take part in that, and it's a really good way, because people who are online who maybe don't have access to newspapers every day, or don't have the person at your door. We've done some incredible things around access. I mean, we just had a telephone town hall where 9,000 people were on the line.
Yes.
I'm so glad they told me after the call. I almost fainted. It's like an auditorium when you think about that, a huge one. We need to be more accessible, and these provide opportunities to kind of just kick the tires of your candidates and see what they're about, and see what they're like as people. And there's not a lot of bluster here. I mean, this is how people are.
This is it.
So thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for coming out. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for watching.
You said it. So we'll be right back with some more candidates. We look forward to seeing you soon. Election Central Brantford.